Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending the 2020 Sunstone Digital Symposium, session 213, titled Make Your Own Manual, a Painting and Writing Workshop. The audio from this session will be available for purchase at sunstone.org after the symposium. The video recording of this session will be available in the Whova app for the remainder of 2020. Go ahead and type your questions in, and we will take questions at the end, but we'd like to see them as they come up. At Sunstone, we are making it a goal to build a community that allows many ways for people to express their faith. Our tagline is, "There's more than one way to Mormon." We invite you to help us build a community where all paths are given space to be better understood. Please support us in our mission by making a donation and subscribing at sunstone.org. About this presentation, church manuals are created by committee for a wide audience. Let's create a manual just for you, based on your thoughts, experiences, and values. Using paint, watercolors, or watered-down acrylics, and paper, we will create the container to hold your insights, resulting in an inspirational manual for life. No talent or experience needed. It will be a fun, relaxing, meaningful process. Come prepared with water-based paints, a container of water, watercolor paper, a paintbrush or two, and a pen. Or just watch and enjoy. I'll take a second to introduce you to our speaker before we begin. Janine Luke is a professional artist, teacher, and mentor. While raising 5 kids, 4 free spirits, and an accountant, over 3 decades, she kept her sanity by painting. Janine exhibits in Laguna Beach, California, and has taught and exhibited in Florence, Italy, where 2 of her paintings live on permanent exhibition in a museum nearby. She now teaches online in her Joyful Painting Club. Janine paints every day and resides in an enchanted cottage tucked in a tiny forest in Napa Valley where she grew up. Joy is her favorite word, and she's most complimented on her contagious laughter. I'll now give the floor to Janine. Go ahead, Janine. You're on.
Okay. I still see the intro screen, so I was waiting.
Okay, let me see if I can. Okay, there we go.
And I still see myself really tiny. Hi, everybody. I am super happy and grateful to be here today. Alongside with the things she mentioned, I've been teaching regional art workshops for Sunstone for the last couple of years, and Grace has referred to me as Sunstone's resident artist. I like that. As an artist, I use color and paint and writing together a lot. And this is a thing that I came up with. I'm always making colorful to-do lists. I make workbooks. I do all kinds of things. This right here is my yearly calendar. Previous to COVID, my work was pretty seasonal, so I made this calendar. This is how I like to just kind of illustrate my life, really. So today we're going to make a manual, and this process that we're going to go through that you can continue to use after the class is, I think, very healing. First of all, we don't value and use the right side of our brain in our society as a rule, unless you're an artist. I also like to take the invisible things, which include our thoughts, and make them visible by doing a painting or illustrating something, or even just making something colorful, but taking it out of the ethers, out of our minds, and putting it on a surface, which today we're using paper, is helps us integrate our lives more, instead of just keeping things in our head. I don't think that's so healthy. So getting things out of our head, out of the ethers, out of our inspiration, whatever you may consider the source for your inspiration, doesn't matter. Getting those things on paper or something is very integrating, very healing, and then it makes it more accessible in the future. So this is going to be a physical thing that you can pick up and use and refer to and remember things that are important to you. When I was growing up in the LDS church back in the 70s, I was a teenager, we were really encouraged to journal and read our scriptures. So somewhere in between, just daily writing and having a book that somebody else wrote, is this thing I've come up with, kind of a living personal book or document tool that you can use. So that's the why. When you use this, I would suggest either on a daily basis, or when you feel down, or when you have a decision to make. Those are some good times. I went through a season of my life where every morning, just as part of my morning ritual, I watercolored pages, and it was so soothing. I just really, really loved it as a way to start the day. It made my whole day better. So I would encourage you to consider a daily practice that includes watercoloring and writing. And this book that we're creating is a format that you can use for that. You can also do any other number of things, of course. So the materials that we're using, I am not a serious watercolorist. I mostly paint with acrylics, sometimes oils, but I do use a lot of watercolors on paper for things like this. And I use just a tray, a pan of watercolors already ready to go. I don't use tubes very often. I have some, but these are just easy and I like the colors. This particular set I'm using is by Pelican. They're made in Germany. I discovered them in Italy, and you can get them on Amazon. Of course, I support going to your local art supply place if you have one. Anyway, that's what I'm going to use today. I just moved a month ago, so my life is in a slight state of disorganization at the moment, but that's okay. Our lives often are. I also like praying. You can get children's, they're designed for children, but they're pretty good watercolors. You can get those at office supply stores. And anyway, it doesn't really matter what you use, but those are a couple that I like. Paper. Watercolor paper is made out of cotton, not wood like our regular writing paper. It's designed to be absorbent, more absorbent, so cotton is great for that. It's put in a mold of some kind and then pressed. So you can get watercolor paper in cold press, hot press, rough. My favorite is hot press. It's the smoothest And then my next favorite is cold pressed, and then rough. I'm not into rough paper. So it doesn't really matter what you use. I have a bunch of sheets of paper. I prefer using loose paper for this project because I really like flexibility and freedom. And if I have like a spiral bound book, I feel stressed that I'm gonna mess up a page. I also can't change the order, so I love using loose sheets of paper and then binding them with like punching 3 holes in the side and putting them in a binder, or putting rings. You can get, these are some 5x7 pre-cut loose things by Strathmore. Loose pages, ready cut watercolor they call it. They come in 5x7, 8x10, and 11x14. So that's another great way to have pages. I have got a ton, well, that's an exaggeration, of these watercolor papers. Oh, brand, my favorite brand is Fabriano. It's made in Italy, centuries old. And I don't like arches. They use horse hoofs for their sizing, and I think that's both cruel and doesn't smell good. Fabriano uses flowers. Anyway, let me see if that's it. Paper, paint, water, brushes, any round, usually you use round brushes for watercolor, and traditional watercolor brushes are made out of natural animal hair. I find that synthetic brushes work just fine for this. We're not painting something serious here. So the process that we're going to do is we're going to paint some pages. And when I say that, I mean we're going to put color on our page in a way that leaves room for us to write. First, I'll show you another workbook that I did just to illustrate some of the possibilities. But, you know, here I did a circle, a sun, just colorful shapes. I'm a big heart person, so you can do hearts, anything at all, really. I just like using color, and for me, it makes like an energetic container for your thoughts to be put into. Here's some nice lines I made. Doesn't have to be, can be very organic. It doesn't have to be, you can see that none of my things are perfect. I like having the paper be, you know, a perfect rectangle. But as far as what I paint on it, I like it organic because that's fun and easy. Maybe for you, maybe you're a kind of person that uses a ruler for everything, and I would encourage you to find and go with your own style. And these are, and so let's get started. So these are some paintings that I just did as ideas, and I will paint them and some others with you in a moment. Maybe you can let us know in the comments if you're painting along with us or if you're just watching. This I did with just dirty paint water. I don't know, you probably can't even see it. It's very, very light, but maybe you like pastels. Sometimes also with watercolor, I will just paint with water first. You probably can't really see this, but it makes, like, if I'm not sure about something, I'll paint it with water first, and I'll just say, do I like that? Yes, I do. If I don't like it, I'll get a different piece of paper. But after you do the water first, you can add paint. Now, I don't usually paint vertically. I usually paint on a flat table, which I'm imagining you're doing. But so everyone can see here, after I put on one color, sometimes it's nice to change to a different color. And to do that most successfully, I like to work in chromatic order. So use a color that's next to the color that you just used around the color wheel, or your paints are generally organized that way. Now I'm going to come back to purple. So here's 3 colors that I'm using together. I mean, this is not great art, obviously. I'm just demonstrating a point here, and I just want you to know that you don't have to create anything that even looks good, and if you hate it, you just toss that page aside, use it for your grocery list or your to-do list, and do another one. What you don't want to do is mix complementary colors when you're doing a nice blend like this, is that will make a muddy look. So using colors next to each other makes a nice fade, so to speak. So yeah, there's one page. So what we're going to do is we're going to make just knock out a handful of pages, and then we're going to do some writing while the pages dry. So just set them aside after you make one, and then we will take our painted pages and we will take what we wrote and we'll see if any of them match up. And if they do, great. You can transfer what you wrote onto your painted page. And if they don't, you can come up with something that fits. Like maybe you have a 4-step thing, or a thing with 4 words or 4 answers. If you didn't paint something with space for 4 things, then you can paint it. So you can't lose, can't do it wrong. You can only just have fun. So you can see that there's variation in how dark the paint is, and there's places where it's skipping. I like that. I think it's interesting. It shows that it was hand created and not made on somebody's digital thing. Although today one of my friends is painting digitally on his iPad with his Apple Pencil, and I hope he's having fun. That's also valid. Didn't mean to pretend it wasn't, but anyway. So yeah, so I've got a heart. One of my favorites is doing a bow. Just do like a figure 8, kind of wiggly like that French ribbon, and then go around, like kind of keep the corners rounded. And if something is too light or too dark, well, if it's too dark, there's no changing it. If it's too light, you can just come back and add some, like, I like my transitions to be kind of gentle. Like I don't want to go from light to dark, dark, dark. So I can just come back and soften that a little bit, and then like to put a knot in the bow. So yeah, so that's one of my favorite pages to do. Just something simple like that. See how we're doing on time. It's 7:50. That means I'm in California. We've been going for 20 minutes. Okay, I think we're doing great. All right. Let's see. Just let yourself be creative. Sometimes just looking at your materials inspires you. Like here, I'm just doing 3 lines, but again, they're in chromatic order. I love that. It feeds my soul somehow. So there's that. Okay. No, I feel like doing like a spiral, even though I'm not really sure how I would write in it. You don't have to know in advance what you're going to do with any particular page. That's kind of the fun of being creative, is allowing things to unfold and not knowing the end result. And if you can transfer that curiosity and trust to life, all the better. I like to use painting as a metaphor for life. I feel it helps me be happier. All right, so there's that. I could almost make that into a snail, but I'm just going to leave it as a spiral. Okay, so I hope that you have made a few pages if you're painting along. And if not, I hope you're inspired to make some pages. The next thing I would like you to do is to get out some paper and a pen. I know I didn't have paper on the list, so I hope you have paper. Or you could type into your laptop or whatever, but I'm going to ask some questions, and I would just like you to answer them with the first thing that comes to your head. This is a, oh, can you hear the roosters? This is a workbook for the book. This isn't something that is going to go in the book. I mean, yes, you will take some of the things you wrote down and put them in the book, but this process that we're going to do right now is we're gathering material for the book. So don't worry about getting it wrong. You can't do this wrong. Don't worry about, is there something better? You can add to this later. You don't have to. This is not a finished experience. So anyway, just relax. Take a deep breath. And I find it really healing to switch between writing and painting. So sometimes I will just paint until I kind of feel like I get to a pausing point, and then I'll write until I get to a pausing point, and it's a wonderful way to work. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so here we go. All right, do you have a favorite word? This is number 1 if you want to number them. You don't have to. Do you have a favorite word or a word of the year? I sometimes do words of the year, but I didn't this year. 2, do you have a favorite quote? Number 3, what are the things that you are most proud of about yourself, about your life so far? What are you, number 4, what are you most grateful for? Number 5, what would your advice be for a friend who was feeling down? And I know that I'm going kind of fast. So I'll slow down a little bit and you can always come back. Number 6, do you have a favorite affirmation? Mine is, I am deliriously happy and living the life of my dreams. Seven, what are your top self-care activities? Number 8, what are your top values? And by that I mean just a word like freedom, truth, integrity, love. What's important to you, value-wise? Number 9, what do you want people to remember you for? Number 10, do you have a favorite scripture? Mine is, woman is that she might have joy. And be still and know that I am goddess. Just a little paraphrasing there. 11, do you have a favorite song or hymn? 12, who are your 3 heroes, living or dead, that you most admire? And later you can do a little bit of writing about what it is you admire about them. What are their qualities? All right, that is what I have for the writing portion live. But I also have some other page ideas that I'm going to talk about that you can flesh out, add in later. Do you have any like notes from a friend or somebody who, a testimonial or one of my art heroes is Wayne Thiebaud, and because I paint cupcakes and he is like the first person that painted cakes, he's turning 100 this November, and I got to meet him once and I showed him a picture of my art and he said, "Keep going." So I went home and I painted "Keep Going" on a piece of watercolor paper, about like a quarter of a piece. I taped it up in my studio with a picture of him, and it's going to be a page in my book. So just things like that. And another idea is things that your mom or dad said that you liked, or your kids. So one of my kids likes to say, if you have them, one of my kids likes to say, "I'm an adult and I make my own decisions." And she says that rather frequently. Another one likes to say, "Progress, not perfection." And another one has taught me, if you're laying in bed asleep or trying to sleep and your mind is busy, just to think the thoughts. Breathe in, breathe out over and over. So advice people have given you that you like. You could write your goals, next steps. Do you have any systems that inspire you or that you use? For me, I love The Power of When. It's a book and there's like different chronotypes. It's a sleep doctor made this book and system. And you can take a test online or whatever. Anyway, he has a schedule for like your type, when's the best time to do things, and I love it. Even if it's wrong, it eliminates a lot of decisions in my life. So I've made an illustrated Power of When schedule that I'm going to put in my book. Or mystical systems, like, are you into astrology? So if you were, you could take your sign and you could put the gifts on the top and the shadow side on the bottom, just as a reminder or a lens to look through. Oh, looks like I'm in my shadow again. Or however you might want to use it. Do you have any prayers that you enjoy, like the Lord's Prayer? Or there's a prayer to Venus on YouTube that I really like, that I've started looking for the words for that I could put in. And one of my mentors has an entrepreneur's prayer that inspires me. So those are some things I want to include. Do you have any method or system for dealing with your thoughts and or your feelings? I use NVC, nonviolent communication, and I'm going to do a page for the process that uses. Byron Katie has the work. I think there's 4 questions that you can ask yourself to examine your thoughts. My sister, when she's upset, likes to focus on gratitude and solutions. I mean, I'm a big feel your feelings person, but don't get stuck in them kind of an idea. There's somebody called the life coach that has a process for asking yourself things. Do you have any questions that you like to ask? Like, what would Jesus do? What would Oprah do? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? What would I do if no one were watching? Things like that. And for making decisions, there's the SWOT analysis, which, if you're not familiar, uses 4 different quadrants, and you make lists of, what if I don't do it? What are the highs and lows? And what if we do? What are the highs and lows? So anyway, those are some ideas of things that you've experienced and used, and or things you could have experienced and used. You probably have your own list. If you'd like a list of mine, I'm going to put together some links, and somehow maybe you could send me your email address through the app or something. You can send me a message and I'll send it to you. So yeah, though that is my thoughts and ideas on the word portion of the project. And I see that we still have a few minutes, so I'm going to take, now if you want to, you can take any of your pages and write something on them, like, I think this one would be a good one for your favorite word or word of the year, but I knew that was coming, so I painted the page with that in mind. But I'm just gonna put mine in here, and I'm using paint for this. Almost everything else I would use a pen, but this is just a short little 3-letter word, and therefore I'm using paint. So yeah, that's my word page. So I would like to pause and see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Janine, I see that the only comments right here, the only question right here that we have is you've already really answered it. It says, any prep work or intention for this art project? Do you want to talk any more on that?
Well, yeah, that was a question before the class started, and I do feel like I answered that, but going forward, I would suggest sitting down with setting your own personal intention for what this means to you. Is this a project for healing? Is it a project for fun, inspiration, whatever? Keep that in the back of your mind. And when you sit down, I would suggest making a daily or weekly or monthly or some kind of process, some kind of set aside time, so that you don't just leave this and never do anything with it again. I mean, if you're able to somehow whip out your whole book in this time together, fantastic. But or whatever you can come up with today, for example, put it together and then set some time aside to continue to work on it. And keep your intention in mind, maybe have a cup of warm something or water, and just make it a sacred experience for yourself.
So I just wanted to show you that I made
Oh my
my
gosh.
and I thought that this would go along really well with values. Sort of on the bottom, I have a little colored line, and I thought I'd write the question, what are your I don't know, important values? And then in the bubbles, I would write some of my values. But I have just been captivated by this idea of making your own manual. And my question is, I wondered if you had any experiences with church manuals or other manuals that made you decide, to just scrap them and make your own.
Well, yeah, I'm just not that much of a manual person, I guess. My sister-in-law was on the committee. She's a great writer and lives in Utah. That remember when, I don't, know how old you are or if you're from the LDS tradition, but we have this giant family. We used to get family home evening manuals every year. Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking that. I didn't even think of this until now. My mom, I love you if you watch this, used to get out the family home evening manual and pick a topic that she thought us kids needed to work on, and she would read from the manual for family night. And I hated it. It was just criticism, really. And anyway, so fast forward to me being a mother, and my sister-in-law was on this manual committee and would tell about how they would write, and then people would have to approve it. And I don't know, I thought it was a decent manual and kind of a cool idea. And then I started my own faith journey, we'll call it. And there was a day when I said something's wrong here about, the church system. And I kind of went on this 10-year exploration. And during that time, I was called to be a seminary teacher. And that was something that was on my non-bucket list. Like, I don't want to ever do that, even when I was super Mormon. No, thank you. But it was my youngest son's last year of high school. I was living in a branch, and I got to teach at my own home with 4 kids. Oh, and it was the Old Testament. Yikes. Anyway, I did not use the manual. I was so offended by the way the manual would tie concepts to, this book of really old stories. It just didn't work for me. So I used the scriptures, and I read the Plan of Salvation lesson, and then I just checked it. And I used the scriptures, I used Wikipedia, and I just came up with a lot of questions. And so, yeah, I'm a little bit of a renegade, I guess, when it comes to the mass manuals. I'm a very independent thinker. I'm a free spirit. I'm creative. So, yeah. And with Sunstone, being a Mormon experience organization, I just thought that, make your own manual was something that related to the Mormon experience. And if I was in another circle, like out in the regular world, something we might call the secular world. I might call it Make Your Own Book of Inspiration or something like that. But for our purposes today, that's my manual story. And
Thank you. We have a couple more questions that have come in.
okay.
So one of them is, who are some of the other artists that inspire you?
Other artists that inspire me from the Renaissance, Botticelli is my favorite, Leonardo da Vinci. I love the way that art can transform thinking and can be like the forefront of a movement. So I love the Renaissance and the way art was included in that. Yeah, those are my top three: Da Vinci, Botticelli, and Wayne Thiebaud. I have a handful of teachers that I love. So for my journey, I painted while I raised the kids. That was my sanity keeper. And I call myself informally trained, because when I decided I wanted to learn about color, I would take a color class and then I would work on that for years. So anyway.
Thank you. And another one is, what time of day works best for you to do art?
That is a very great question. When I was raising the kids, I would usually do art before my day started. Like, there was a season when I got up and did yoga from 6:30 to 7, and then I would paint from 7 to 8, and then I would just live the rest of my day like a mom. One of my inspiring art painters, she used to get up and paint from 4 to 7 before her family day started. Now my kids are grown. I'm a full-time artist, and I love having a morning ritual practice that I do around 9. That's sort of one of my teachers calls it cafe time, where you sit down with a sketchbook and a cup of tea or something, and if you have a partner who's available, you can talk about ideas or whatever. So I'm alone, but I like to just do a little something. I also set aside 4 o'clock as my painting time, because besides painting, I have to market my art and do all these other things. And so I often like to do the brain work in the morning and then paint in the late afternoon. My ideal thing is to have a schedule, and then if my schedule doesn't work, have a routine. And then if I can't do my routine, use a timer. And I do this thing where I'll set my timer for 15 minutes, and the first 15 minutes of an hour I will do active cleanup or whatever. The second 15 minutes I'll do like computer, office, phone stuff. The third 15 minutes I'll do something creative. And then the fourth 15 minutes I will rest or just self-replenish somehow. So I can go I can do things for hours that way. So that's sometimes how I work painting in. The important thing is to work it in. And there's no one way that I do all the time. I've got a bunch of different ways that I do it. Something else that I like is having one of those little Buddha boards that you paint with water and then they evaporate. there was a time that I had like 3 of those in my house, one in the bathroom, one in the kitchen, and one in my bedroom. And like nearly every time I walked by it, I would just dip a brush in water and paint a heart or whatever I felt like. I like having like a default thing to go to. Like for me, it's hearts and cupcakes, so that I never have to think, oh, what should I paint? Well, I'm going to paint a heart or a cupcake and then see what I feel like doing. So yeah,
Very
good
cool.
question.
Some of those sound like a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Another question is, do you have any books, podcasts, movies, or TV that inspire you?
Oh my gosh. I don't really watch TV. I don't have a TV. Um, I stopped watching TV. That's a whole nother subject that I don't think answers the question. Podcasts, books. Um, I don't really feel like I do. I mean, Year of Polygamy was my first podcast. Has nothing to do with art though. Um, Although episode 100 talks about kind of about forging your own way. A bunch of friends recommended that to me, so I do love and recommend that episode. Um, I just I don't know, I'm very eclectic, and when I find something that inspires me, I grab it. So I don't have a good answer.
Okay. It sounds like you get your inspiration from within more than
I
from
think,
out. Yeah.
yeah, and nature really inspires me. Nature and other people's art, I think, are what inspire me artistically.
Okay. Here's a question. What other Sunstone seminars have you liked or are looking forward to?
Well, I love Carolyn Pearson,
Oh,
and I'm excited that she's speaking. I got to meet her uh, several years ago, and I organized a retreat in Southern California that she led. And so I'm looking forward to her. I think she should be our prophetess if we could have one. Um, and I love Lindsay. And I haven't really been a big Sunstone attendee. I spoke 2 years ago, but it was during my festival season. So I flew in, spoke, and then flew out. I didn't even go to anybody's. So yeah, it's a short list, but I've
okay.
been so I've been so busy moving and getting ready to teach this that I haven't had a chance to.
Well, I love your space. All that wood. It looks really nice. I'd like to encourage you, Janine, to post some pictures of your art on the Hoover app. I'd like to see
Okay,
some of your works. So I'd
I'd
love.
love to. Thank you.
Okay. Well, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Well, my final thoughts are just create, experiment, enjoy the journey. In our society, we're very results focused, and sometimes if you start painting, people will say, well, let me see your painting, and is it good or not? And we'll criticize or judge ourselves on whether or not we made a good painting. And then it goes to, well, can I sell this? And can I make money? You know, we've got this whole linear outcome success mindset that is not really nurturing. So my encouragement is to enjoy creativity for creativity's sake, to foster being a more creative person, to enjoy this particular process and any other that you choose to engage with, just for the way that you feel. Um, I once saw a quote in an art supply store that said, my canvas was my world and I could do as I wanted in it. And for me, that is one of my inspirations, is that, you know, when I have a blank page, I get to do whatever I want. And just that freedom, that creativity is wonderful. And I also consider creativity positive forward momentum. We can get in these negative downward spirals of shame, regret, guilt that aren't really helpful. But creativity is bringing something new in. It's creating something that wasn't there before. It's using color and yourself and combining those things together and creating something unique and individual that is a true joy. So that's my closing words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janine, for your session. We want to thank everyone who's participated and also those who will watch this later for coming, and thank you for your support of Sunstone. And we will now end the session.